From the farthest reaches of the galaxy, the Midwest, you're watching Beyond the Blast Doors live.
In just 4 days, we will have what will be the final installment of the Skywalker saga. 42 years, it ends today. I got so excited, I cut the animation off quick. You know why? Because I just wanted to see your face. I wanted you to see my face. And I want to talk about Star Wars because we're just 4 days away from The Rise of Skywalker dropping in theaters, depending on where you live, right? So December 20th, that's the big day, right? But if you live in the Midwest, I can tell you that you get to see it on Thursday night, which is the 19th. And if you're having a really good day, maybe you're having a really good week, maybe you felt courageous enough to go up to your boss and say, hey, can we switch my shift around so I can go see the yearly preview? And maybe you have a cool boss like I do, and you got the okay. So I get to go see it Thursday night, and I'm pretty excited about it. Glad we can be having this live conversation on a Sunday morning, as we always do here on Beyond the Blast Doors. And you saw the graphic here before the start of the show. But maybe if you're just listening to the show, and that's not a problem at all, I want you to know about the different ways that you can catch our show. We're always live every Sunday, 11 a.m. Central Time. Join us on the live show where you get to kind of direct where our Star Wars conversation goes. And that's what we have here. We always say it here on Beyond the Blast Doors. Welcome to our Star Wars conversation. We want you to help guide us through this adventure we call discussion and debate. And we do everything respectfully. That's the fun thing I like about Beyond the Blast Doors. You know, everyone gets their take, and you get to stand by your take, and no one's disrespectful about it. You know, it's kind of like how the world should operate. And that's how we do it here on Beyond the Blast Doors. But let's say you're not able to join us on the live show on Sunday morning, because 11 a.m. Central is maybe sometimes an inconvenient time for your schedule, and that's fine too. You can always catch us on the Rewind on the YouTube channel. You can also listen to our show on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. We also put a couple extra nuggets on our Patreon, always continuing to develop that. There will be a town hall, actually, on the Patreon account here in a couple of days, where we are going to try and get our current Patreons to join us for a live Q&A. And the whole point of that would be to just have a conversation about what we really want the Patreon account to look like. What are the bonus what's the bonus content that really would make it worth you subscribing or staying subscribed in the year 2020? So be on the lookout for that announcement coming out on social media. But yeah, it's episode 76, and this is our last time to have a conversation about what will be in, what could be, what do we want to see in The Rise of Skywalker, because we're only 4 days away. If you're paying attention to our Instagram account, you might notice that we're a day behind in our post. That's unintentionally. We're going to post the 4-day away graphic here shortly. But we are really excited to just be able to we have a list of things we want to address here in the next hour on episode 76. Of course, the live chat, people are starting to stop by. Hello to everyone joining us there. Mr. Rez, Rural Farm Boy, Ricardus, I already shouted out Mr. Rez, but John Boffman, a proud Patreon supporter, and Comic Bricks joining us all in the live chat. That live audience is climbing and climbing. Do us a favor if you can already. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up button on this video. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, go ahead and do that. The big thing here is let's take 2.5 seconds and hit that share button on our social media, and let's get this shared on our Facebook, on our Twitter, on our Instagram, wherever you can share this episode. Let's make the first goal. Let's try and get 20 people in the live audience, because the more people we get in our live audience, and this is the case every week, obviously the more ideas that are shared. But when we're talking about The Rise of Skywalker being 4 days away, and what are the things that we want to see, what are the things we don't want to see, what do we think will happen, what should happen, the more people in the conversation, the better here, more ideas from the outside. So definitely go ahead and hit that share button. Okay, so how this is going to work is pretty simple. We're just going to start with characters. Actually, I should say a shot in the dark, how we think the story is going to play out structurally. Then take a look at individual characters. We are going to take a look at the latest TV spot, at least that I've seen. This happens every time, except for Solo. But you get so many TV spots with these movies, it's hard to keep track. I think we're in the 20s as far as TV spots are concerned. And the Star Wars YouTube channel doesn't share all of them, just some of them. And so what we have here, I'll play that latest clip in a bit, because I think it's interesting. Also, because J.J. Abrams just did that Fortnite session where they played a clip which we had kind of already seen. This was yesterday that the Fortnite session happened, where he shows the scene of, our trio. Actually, it was more than a trio, but I think it's the Falcon that lands in like a Star Destroyer bay, and they come in here and they try and infiltrate and raise the Force. We had seen that a week ago. It wasn't very new, but there was some audio that J.J. Abrams shared there of Palpatine, the Emperor, talking about the Sith, which is really interesting, and I'm not going to play that audio, but I am going to play the Kylo Ren meets the Emperor TV spot clip in just a few moments that we'll be able to talk to. Meanwhile, I've got images here on screen with me to give you something else to look at other than my face, but also to keep me on track, because each image is going to jog a different thought in my head. And then, of course, if you have something that you specifically want me to discuss, all you've got to do is tag me in the live chat with your question, so that way I see it. Wish we had super chat, so that way it'd just be more of a big red flag for us to be able to, to see those and prioritize those. Totally fine here. Just go ahead and do at Beyond the Blast Doors, and then type out your question, and then it'll pop up pretty straightforward. Of course, thanks to Roll Farm Boy and John Boffman for being our moderators in this Star Wars conversation today. Okay, so first things first, how do we think structurally this movie is going to look 4 days away from it? Very confident that everything that we have seen with Leia so far has been on this forest-like planet. It seems that Rey is training on this planet. There are images of Leia with the lightsaber. And the one thing that I haven't been able to confirm on my own, and I'm taking people's word for what it is, but I'm told there was a TV spot that had Leia holding the lightsaber. And I have not yet seen that. I've only seen still images of that. And it kind of looks Photoshopped, so I'm not really buying into it, but maybe it was in a TV spot. And if that was the case, then yes, then we can safely affirm that Leia is helping Rey with her training on that planet. We see Rey through that first trailer, or that last trailer rather, running through the woods, right? She drops that helmet, running through the woods, blaster shot, she's deflecting blaster bolts. She's got the red ribbon in her hand, which some people are tying connections to. The influences of what helped the directors and writers with this movie. The red band having a tie to the samurai films, novices training there. So if that's the case, that's a pretty cool throwback. But pretty confident that this all takes place at the very beginning. It looks like the Resistance, or maybe we're calling them Rebels again, because again, halfway through The Last Jedi, Finn calls them the Rebels. Like, everyone starts calling them the Rebels again. So it's back to the Rebels, I think. At least that's what I'm thinking going into this. And they've created some kind of base in this foresty place. And Rey is training, and it looks like there's having to be a mission that goes very quickly. Now, here's what I can't pinpoint. I think what happens is we start on this mission with maybe Finn and Poe and Rey and R2-D2 and C-3PO, and then they come back and meet up with Leia and the rest of the Rebel Alliance. However, that would seem a little bit jarring. I feel like maybe that speeder bike chase that we see with the jet troopers, maybe that's kind of like the first action sequence. So it's probably, let's connect with Rey and our heroes training on this foresty planet. They have to go up onto the side mission. There has to be a conflict, something that pushes our characters towards the third act, which a lot of people believe we have seen nothing of in any of this footage. But I would disagree with that once we watch this TV spot with Kylo Ren and the Emperor, because I'd have to think that the whole third act is going to be Emperor, Rey, and Kylo in whatever kind of duel that looks like. You also have this massive space battle ensuing. So I think the second act, there has to be something pivotal that happens there, and it could either be an attack on the base where we see the Rebel Alliance, or it could be in result of whatever our heroes find out of on that starship when they infiltrate. Because we know that they land, they infiltrate, Rey does the Force thing, and then Kylo locates them in the bay, they shoot off into hyperspace. I wonder if it's in that moment there that they learn about this greater evil, and that sends them to what we think is maybe Endor, another moon of Endor. It could be the same moon of Endor that we saw in Return of the Jedi, something that was really controversial with the marketing campaign for Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. There was a clip showing um, showing a costume that looked very much like Wicket, and it looked very much aged Wicket, and it looked like very much like it was going to be a cameo that we'll see upcoming in The Rise of Skywalker. Now, we'll talk cameos in a little bit, but what would be the best cameo that you can imagine in The Rise of Skywalker? Maybe J.J. Abrams gave us that answer yesterday on the Fortnite session as well. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I want to jump in the live chat real quick. Talking Star Wars, why hasn't Hux or Pride been in the trailer? I wonder if it's only because Hux and Pride don't play an important role in The Rise of Skywalker. I wonder if the amount of embarrassment that Hux had to suffer in The Last Jedi, because Kylo ultimately wins and becomes the head honcho. I wonder if that's why they move out. Maybe they're part of this bigger issue that I'm trying to figure out, which is what gets our heroes from the first act to the third act. And then that's why I kind of I was going to say chuckle. I am baffled when fans say we don't think we've seen anything from the third act. If everything that we've seen is the first two acts, then what the hell can happen in that third act that's going to be bigger than hundreds of Star Destroyers randomly showing up and hundreds of Rebel Alliance ships and hundreds of ships from across the galaxy? Like, what is going to be bigger than that? And so that is what probably keeps me up at night the most. But I wonder, at what point does the First Order become irrelevant? And what time does the Emperor's hidden army become the opposition? So at some point, I think the First Order gets phased out, and then you have these Star Destroyers emerging from the water, and then you have the Emperor's Grand Army, and then it's just like, I think it honestly might turn into the fact that the First Order and the Resistance or Rebel Alliance might have to team up because they are so overwhelmed by all these OG Star Destroyers showing up. And you have those many Star Destroyers. How many TIE fighters are you going to have on? I mean, maybe this is just thinking about it maybe I'm being too critical. I'm trying to think of it. But there has to be like a bajillion ships in this battle that we're going to watch in 4 days. It's going to be insane. And if that is all in the second act, I don't know what's going to happen in this third act that's going to top that. But I'm absolutely thrilled, of course, going into the sequel trilogy back 2013, 2014, 2015. I kept saying to friends, I was like, man, I really hope they bring back the Emperor. And somehow they could connect Darth Plagueis to all of this, because I thought that's kind of what George Lucas had done in Revenge of the Sith. They're at the opera scene. You have Palpatine sitting there with Anakin. Anakin is confused. He knows Padme is going to die in childbirth, and he wants to salvage his relationship, but he also wants power, and he's easily manipulated in that moment. And Palpatine tells the tale of Darth Plagueis, effectively making him canon, effectively making him a tool that you can play with on the big screen, which I think is really exciting because, of course, all we have right now is that EU novel. And I was at the edge of my seat. I go, this is not only Lucas insinuating that maybe Palpatine, through the sheer use of the dark side of the Force, created life in Shmi Skywalker, thus creating Anakin Skywalker. But it also sets up the opportunity that maybe George Lucas is setting up what he wants to do in 7, 8, and 9. Depending on the interview, depending on the decade, depends on the answer that George Lucas gives to the question, how many movies are you going to make in this saga? In this Star Wars story, how many stories are there? And if you go back to those Leonard Maltin interviews before the original trilogy on VHS, he tells Leonard Maltin, I made this big story, but it was too big to make into a movie. So I took the middle chunk and I made 4, 5, and 6. That's what he said. So there was a prequel, there was a background story, because he talked about how he needed to kind of figure out how all these characters fit and how they got to this point. But there's also a chunk in front of it, or in the future, 7, 8, and 9. And he had some ideas. And I think like anything with any storyteller, that the idea, the concept of that story evolved and changed over time. And so I don't know if in the late, this would have been the early 80s, I'm not sure if he really had the whole midichlorians thing in mind. I'm not really sure if that's what he had envisioned for 7, 8, and 9. Now, of course, we know a lot more thanks to visual dictionary or the art of The Force Awakens. We know that George kind of was playing with his character Kira and Sam, and Luke was in isolation, and he had been betrayed by his student, and he was searching through parts of the Force. I really like the EU take. I always do wish that he would have gone into isolation because he experimented and failed with the dark side of the Force, trying to master both. Something I do love of the EU. I bash the EU quite a bit for its lack of structure, but I do love that element of it. But I digress. You have a really I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. I think the Emperor is going to be the reveal in this movie overall will be the Emperor, his fall, but the who that does it. And a lot of people are talking about Rey or Kylo redeeming himself in some way and becoming Ben, and then going off and taking down the Emperor. But what if the Rise of Skywalker truly is going back to Revenge of the Sith, and it's Anakin Skywalker? Because the Rise of Skywalker, Anakin was always referred to as Skywalker in the prequels. And Luke was not really referred to as Skywalker until the sequel trilogy by Snoke in The Force Awakens, and Kylo, of course, in The Force Awakens. And so I think it'd be interesting if somehow you could bring back Anakin and Luke to take down the Emperor. And this seems like a real long shot, and it's not even me trying to be a fanboy of original trilogy characters and prequel trilogy characters and letting them save the day. I'll be the first one to admit the Disney trilogy is all set up for Rey to be the hero at the end of the day. The proof that anyone can tap into the Force, be trained in it, and save the day. Which most of that I can buy into. But I wonder if there is some kind of world between worlds thing that actually is going to take effect in Rise of Skywalker. I was scoffing at the idea. Dave Filoni pulled it off in the animation. I said, in animation, people would let it slide. I don't know if it would work in live action. But J.J. Abrams said that Ahsoka Tano could be making a cameo in Star Wars. And based on the timeline, I guess she's middle-aged at the end of Return of the Jedi that we see with the Rebels finale. And so 30 years later, that would be interesting. But I also wonder if the world between worlds thing could be factored in there. And somehow Ahsoka goes back and brings her master back. I don't know. I could be really reaching here. But I think that's what's going to happen. Not necessarily connected. And fascinating how we got to that point. The question was, why hasn't Hux and Pride been in the trailer? I think that's just because they're playing such a minor role, but they could be part of that conflict that links us to the first and third acts here in Star Wars. So that would be the quick answer. Talking Star Wars, I'm sorry that I went off on such a tangent. Comic books, I feel that Kylo Ren meets the Emperor clip wasn't a spoiler, but I would rather have kept that a surprise. I don't know if that would have been a surprise if we would have shown up. You hear the Emperor talk in the first trailer that drops in April at Star Wars Celebration. They've kept teasing the Emperor with voiceover. We haven't seen him but once. I think we've seen a clip of him within the last 10 days of him sitting in the throne. So I think that's a foregone conclusion. I think it's a foregone conclusion that once you bring in the Emperor, I think it's a foregone conclusion that you're going to have Rey and you're going to have Kylo having to team up to destroy the Emperor. That's how it sets up from, this perspective where we haven't seen the movie play out, so we're just guessing, but we're going off of how the last two movies were made. And the last two movies make Daisy Ridley's Rey and Kylo Ren the focal point, the two people that you need to really care about in this trilogy. It's their story. You could really make the argument it's Rey's story and how she factors into the galaxy. But I would say that I think they should have shown more of the Emperor. I think they should have shown his face in April, because I think that even though we're getting all these TV spots now, I still don't think people get it. There's someone I met the other day didn't realize there was a Star Wars movie coming up. I'm like, how do you not know that there's a Star Wars movie coming out in December? He goes, well, I don't have TV anymore. So he's missing all these TV spots that have been pumped out. I guess he's not very active on social media. I had another friend that I was talking about. They're like, well, what do you think is going to happen in The Rise of Skywalker? I'm like, well, the Emperor is going to probably be in I hope at least a third of this movie. I hope the Emperor is in this movie 25 minutes. I think he should play a really pivotal part to really tie up this 9-movie saga. Person had no idea the Emperor is in it. Had no idea at all. Had no idea. There's some people on the internet that don't think the Emperor's still going to be in this movie. There's a theory going on the internet right now that it is all just J.J. Abrams' misdirect. And I'm like, you've seen the hand, you've seen him sitting in the throne, you hear the voice, multiple different lines. You're just trying to find a way to terrorize this movie, mess with fans, disrespect people's work on this movie. Star Wars fans, it's Star Wars. Let's just enjoy Star Wars for what it is. I said this the other night on streaming Star Wars. It's like The Mandalorian is fun Star Wars live action storytelling. It's something we've never had before, and it's all one big experiment. For you to just complain, nitpick it to death. You're just trying not to like it. Just let yourself enjoy Star Wars. It's quite all right. Just a movie. Okay, so all right. So talking Star Wars. I don't know if I really answered your question. But basically, Hux and Pride, I don't think they're going to play a big role. All right, comic books, yes. Kylo Ren, I still think that they should have shown more of the Emperor, and that's just me. Why do you think Hux and Pride aren't... okay, so he's talking about that to Rural Farm Boy in the live chat, of course. When we go live every Sunday morning, you can join us in the live chat to kind of dictate where the conversation goes. We mentioned Zori Bliss here, and I'm kind of curious, what is the role that she has in this movie? Does she have a piece of information that is valuable? Is Zori Bliss somehow connected to Rey's history? We're not quite sure. Apparently, we're going to address her parents again in this movie. I don't think Kerry Russell is old enough to play Rey's daughter. I could be wrong. But this is another a situation where, again, we've always talked about how this is the end of the Skywalker saga. You're wrapping up 9 films. You have 2.5 hours, we know, to tell this story. I think it's just over 2.5 hours. You can't really spend a whole lot of time on new characters when your job is to wrap up this movie, wrap up this trilogy, and wrap up this 9-part story. That is a lot to accomplish in 2.5 hours. And so my concern here would be that they would spend too much time trying to establish new characters instead of moving us towards this final great ending here of The Rise of Skywalker. In the character posters, why wasn't there Luke, Leia, or Palps? There was in the one poster that was posted. That was poorly said, but one of the movie posters had Palpatine behind, and it was Rey and Kylo dueling on what we think is part of the Death Star 2 wreckage. So Palpatine was there, and again, I think more could have been used. The main characters of this trilogy are not Luke, are not Leia. I think if I go back to the poster that I shared so here's the graphic that I made. If you're watching the live show or on the rewind, I'm putting on the screen. They had Rey and Kylo and Poe and Finn. You get Chewie in there. You get Lando in there. You get you don't get Leia and you don't get Luke, and it's probably just because they're not important to the overall story anymore. They're not critical, and I'm not trying to be a negative person about this, but they're not. This whole trilogy has been about getting away from the Star Wars that we knew and telling new adventures, for better or for worse. I've been pretty vocal and pretty honest about it. I don't like that strategy, but I'm not the one making the movies, and so it's interesting to see where they're going. I kind of thought the baton would be passed from generation to generation in 9 with Luke's death, but there was a different story told, and so I think that if we're lucky, I think we'll get 1, maybe 2 scenes with Luke Skywalker as a ghost. I think that when the movie ends, Leia hasn't been seen since the first act. I think she just lives to fight another day. Maybe she does pop up at the very end. I still want to believe that this movie ends kind of like the end of Empire Strikes Back, where you have all the ships in formation, and they're about to hit hyperspace, and you just have C-3PO put his hand on R2-D2, and then hyperspace, they hit it, and credits roll. That's kind of how I want to see it happen. But I don't know, but we'll find out in 4 days. Comic Book says, I think Kylo Ren should die. He did his chance to redeem himself in The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and both times he blew it. Okay, so I had someone reach out to me on, someone commented on a video from like 2 years ago about Kylo Ren, and I read this yesterday. And the argument this person was making was that when Kylo Ren did have a chance to truly cut himself off from Ben, like completely destroy Ben Solo inside of him, he actually failed. Now listen to this, and it's valid. In The Last Jedi, he wanted to separate himself. He had the opportunity to take out not just the deck of the Resistance cruiser. He could take out Leia and ended her, and he literally could not pull the trigger. And so someone else, one of the TIE fighters, hit the shot, whatever, failed. Leia lives to see another day. Fine. So there's that. In the novelization of The Force Awakens, and I know I don't like it when these kind of details are just left in the novels and not for the books, but Kylo Ren was apparently not a fan of destroying all of Hosnian Prime. He had friends there, he knew people there, and he didn't like this demonstration. Now, based on what we see in the movie, I call BS on that, okay? I think that Kylo was just as much of a part of spreading the First Order control in the galaxy as anyone else, just as much as Hux, and he did the bidding of Snoke, and so this is something that he has part of the responsibility for these 5 planets being destroyed. However, this person didn't look at that way. Actually, it was Kylo still holding on to a little bit of Ben, and if you go with that, then yeah, Ben Demption in 9 should be a foregone conclusion. The idea that Kylo would be no longer, Ben Solo would be back in town. Doubt he goes as far back as wearing the white robes, but he and Rey team up against the Emperor. Still curious to see where is that Rey and Kylo are together, and they destroy the statue that stand that had Vader's helmet. I'm still not sure where that is. I wonder if that's tied into that scene that we have seen a few times that we mentioned already on the show, which is Rey, Finn, and Poe storming the destroyer and sneaking around the ship. I wonder if it's that same location. I thought it was maybe a First Order facility on Cloud City, based on some of the buildings off in the distance. I said that a few episodes ago. I could be wrong on that, but we will see. Okay, in The Force Awakens, Snoke says there's been an awakening he has felt. Could this be Palps? In The Force Awakens, I feel like everything points to Rey. The dark side has risen, and light is coming up to meet it. Okay, and that's not obviously how the quote is said in the movie. I know, but you get what I'm saying here. And I would like to think that is still always going to be Rey. And I guess my assumption is that Snoke was being manipulated by the Emperor. But I would also wager this, because I don't know how often Snoke was actually in the room with anybody. And so I wonder if it's a thing where, like, Palpatine, because we hear in this video, we're going to play this here in a minute. The Emperor basically says that he has been every voice inside Kylo's head. And so I wonder if somehow Snoke was just a laboratory experiment for Palpatine to continue manipulating the galaxy until he had strength enough to come back. I don't know, but I don't think it was in reference to Palpatine, even though I'm pretty sure JJ has gone on record a few times saying that it always made sense for Palpatine to come back. And honestly, if I'm thinking about this, yeah, maybe I am kind of glad that it wasn't Palpatine in 7 and 8. Maybe I would have liked to have some kind of some hint alluding to the Emperor in 8. But for this being like the final boss of the saga, yeah, like this makes a lot of sense to me. Comic Bricks, I think Kylo Ren should die. Okay, we already talked about that. Great. He's going to die, and he'll probably be redeemed. And I don't agree with it, but if it's done well, then I guess I'll be okay with it. I just sometimes think some people are bad, and they should die bad. John Hoffman, I had trouble thinking World Between Worlds will be used, as it's never been mentioned in the movies. I think the average Star Wars fan wouldn't understand. You are probably so accurate on that, John Hoffman, because for the amount of people that have watched the Star Wars movies, a smaller portion have watched the animated series. But that was definitely just some speculation on my part. You're right. How much crossover is too much crossover? I think that, JJ teased yesterday that fan that we're going to have Ahsoka Tano probably making a cameo. You're going to have to look close, but you might see Ahsoka in Rise of Skywalker. And so my point is, are you going to see an old Ahsoka Tano? Are you going to see something where time and space gets manipulated, and that's how the Emperor came back, and that's how the hero of this movie comes back? I don't know. It's all one big guess. But I do agree that would be a lot to try and explain, again, when you only have 2.5 hours to wrap up this whole thing. So I'm not sure how many new ideas you can introduce, given the fact that the Emperor, back after 30 years, is a pretty new idea. You're going to have to explain how that's possible. And the Emperor is probably going to be doing that. Like any villain, he gives away all of his secrets. Talking Star Wars, do you think Zori will remove her helmet? I'd say there's probably a good chance. World Farm Boy has corrected me, 2 hours, 20 minutes. Okay, with credits, it's going to be like 2:30. Not that matters. And, of course, no post-credit scene in Star Wars. Zori, yeah, she'll remove the helmet. I'm not really worried about her character. I just think that she's going to be someone helping move the story along. I am interested. John Boyega says there's a lot more exploration into Finn's character, which I'm excited about because I felt like Finn was really just kind of cut out, like literally sent across the galaxy during The Last Jedi, so he couldn't really play as pivotal of a role. And so I'm looking forward to exploring some background on him because, yeah, he was, you go back to Force Awakens, he was a marketing badass. Okay, he was shooting the guns, he had the lightsaber. It was being set up that he was going to be someone central to the story. And The Last Jedi, he was kind of taken out. So glad to see and hear his excitement, John Boyega's excitement about us seeing the rise of Skywalker. Villanueva is in the live chat with us. Rick, thank you for joining us. He says if Zori has a history with Poe, she'll mention something about his parents and their role with the rebellion, reminding Poe about the sacrifices that good people have made and giving him more inspiration. Yeah, I can kind of buy into that. And I also like the idea that Poe taking the helm of the Rebels, Resistance, whatever we're calling them, that was kind of set up. Even going back to The Force Awakens, Poe developing himself into a leader and kind of taking this over. I don't see him being a diplomat in the future. How Leia was, she was a politician, but she also could shoot a gun. But at the end of Return of the Jedi, she didn't go with Luke to build the Jedi Order. She went to build up the New Republic. And so I am excited to see how Poe develops himself further as a leader and takes those lessons of loss from The Last Jedi and applies them to advancing the story. I say all that. I'd like to know what happens next. Maybe we get that in comics. I just really doubt that these main characters, we will see them on the big screen in another Star Wars movie. But that's just my hunch. Talking Star Wars says, I think Janna is Lando's daughter. I've said that ever since Naomi and the newer cast. I would put more money on the fact that I think that she is Finn's sister. She is Finn's family, and they somehow unite. And I think that's why he's saying we learn more about his past. So that's what I'm going for. I ship the 3, Rey Foe. Wow, so a love triangle in The Rise of Skywalker. I don't think so. I think Rey is on her own. I think Kylo is getting redeemed and dying for the greater good, and I think it's probably going to be Finn and Poe that share the on-screen kiss. That is something that I've gotten from a recent interview with J.J. Abrams. Balancing romance with space opera in the sense that romance. So how is this? The question was asked something like, the balance between romance and sexuality in Star Wars and how that plays a role for the overall story. And JJ mentioned like sexuality was never really a thing with Star Wars. It was always romance, and the whole Star Wars story is kind of romantic. It is a space opera, and I'm right there with JJ. I think the romance sometimes complements Star Wars. Leia and Han, that was a romance that did advance the story because you were seeing how this relationship was developing as opposed to with Luke. And, of course, Luke and Leia ultimately become brother and sister, and Han's kept around. He's the bait for Return of the Jedi. I mean, it played a role in it. I sometimes there's this movies where it's just like, someone looks at someone else and it's like, kiss me. It doesn't really have any... it doesn't really have value to the story. It's just like an opportunity to see people make out on screen. I hope there is some value or context if they are going to do this with Finn and Poe. I hope it truly does have value to the story. It's done respectfully for the characters, because the last thing you want is this to be done not with the best of intentions, and then it gets ripped apart because people are jerks in this world. So if it does, by all means, happen, I think it can happen and it should happen. It's fine. I think something that has been a real priority for Star Wars, especially in this Disney trilogy, is representation. Everybody wants to see themselves on that screen, and that's fine because not everyone can see themselves through Luke. I think you can empathize with Luke in A New Hope, and I think you can kind of see, if you're a girl, you can see maybe some you share some feelings, you have empathy for Luke, but if you're a girl, you don't see yourself truly in Luke because he's a boy, and maybe you're a girl, or maybe there are other aspects of who you are as a person that you haven't seen in Star Wars. Well, hopefully you're seeing them now, and I think that is good because the galaxy is supposed to be diverse. It is our world. Our world is diverse, and Star Wars is a reflection of our society and our problems and where we need to go. So I think that's something that Star Wars has always tried to do, and I think that is something that Star Wars has done well in the Disney era. Unfortunately, there are people that are still bigots in the world and think they're right, but they're wrong. Okay, cool. So that's that was my soapbox. We are a half hour into episode 75 of Beyond the Blast Doors, and it has been me talking incessantly, basically. I did a very basic outline of where I think this movie is going to go as far as starting in the woods. We're going to go infiltrate First Order facility, and then we're going to somehow be told we need to go to the forest moon of Endor to go find these Death Star remnants. I don't know. I mean, there seems like there has to be events in between those three pillars to motivate our characters to go from one place to another. How does the Emperor reveal himself? Or is it like some Sith artifact? That dagger that Rey has, is that dagger found on that ship where Kylo is, or that building that Kylo is keeping the Vader helmet, and is Rey confiscate that, and it's somehow it's somehow connected to the Emperor, and so it sends her on this path, and they follow the strength of the vibration of the dagger, and they find the Emperor. I don't know. I didn't write the script, but I feel like, in a way, that dagger is kind of like the MacGuffin, but the ultimate MacGuffin would, of course, be the Emperor, trying to track him down. But yeah, what encourages our characters to go to this place, to find this character, to save the galaxy? That is the answer and the question that we seek the answer to with the Rise of Skywalker that we'll see in 4 days from this moment. That is the one that will not be guessed. So, Daisy really said in a recent interview that someone did guess part of the ending of The Rise of Skywalker. And I always keep my guesses kind of modular. I think this event here and this event here and this event here, and it's fine. With The Last Jedi, what that taught me is don't try and spit out everything that happens in that movie. Don't get your hopes up for a certain thing to happen, because it just might not, and it might influence your ability to enjoy that movie. So, I've taken the 6% of the film we've probably seen with all the TV spots, all the trailers, and just kind of looking at it. Yeah, at some point we're ending up in the Sith catacombs. I don't know if that's Dathomir. No idea. I think it would be so cool to go to Dathomir in a live-action film, but that also seems not realistic. There's some kind of structure. We're going to just have to play this trailer. I think we're just going to have to play this clip so that way we are all on the same page. The live chat just looks like it's blowing up. Hey, we got Sea Warder 19 in here. We got Shonda Zoop in here. This is really nice. Got some new faces in the live chat. Really appreciate everyone staying here with us, and thanks for your patience. I wanted to talk about the kind of like the structure of the film, how I saw it. I want to dive in the live chat. We'll talk about some characters coming up here now after we watch this clip. But it's really important that while we're just able to have a conversation here, just sharing our excitement about the movie that's coming out in just a couple of days. And if you are just joining us, which I really do appreciate, go ahead and take the time. If you can hit the share button right now and write like 1 or 2 sentences, just telling your friends to join us here in the live chat. We're at 13 live right now. I think we're up at 15 one point. Would like to see us hit 20 people in the live chat, and then let's try and hit 30. I want to get everyone's take on this movie. It's going to be a really fun conversation that we're having right now, but I'm really looking forward to just getting more and more people in this conversation so that we can expand our understanding of certain things. Maybe I have a very narrow-minded view on certain topics. I want you to teach me the ways. This is the way, right? A little Mandalorian reference. Trying to zip through some of these live chat questions that I might have missed. Ren Star Destroyer. When we speak in fragments, it's hard for me to figure out. Here we go. Chanda Zoop. Honestly, I don't think it's Palpatine anymore. With that clip and the presumed first line of the movie from the Fortnite event, I think it's a more ancient Sith. Okay. So I think I know where you're going with this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it would be super dope if you were right. If it wasn't Palpatine and it was Plagueis. That's the only older Sith that I can think of. It couldn't be Bane because Bane didn't learn how to, or Merrick. It couldn't. They didn't learn how to manipulate the Force to create life. It was Plagueis and it was Palpatine. I'm very confident that Palpatine is in this. We have seen images of Palpatine like sitting in the throne, like that we have seen. But what if there is just one more Sith playing a marionette? I mean, I don't know. You have so much dialogue with Ian McDiarmid. I'm pretty comfortable saying that the Emperor is in this movie. You should feel pretty comfortable. But if Plagueis did survive, that would go over so well with so many fans. And of course, hopefully everybody that goes into that movie, Episode 9, they've seen the other 8 saga films. I think that's really important to have seen all 8 saga films before you see this movie. My fear is someone who only knows the sequel trilogy as their Star Wars goes into 9 and doesn't understand Plagueis or the Tale of Darth Plagueis or the Rise of the Emperor and the Fall of the Republic. I think these are going to be playing massive roles in this movie. So for some reason, if you are watching this right now and you have not watched the previous Star Wars movies, I mean, you have 4 days. Make it happen. But that would be interesting. Okay, so let's pause. The live chat is going great. Love seeing this. I'm confused. Talking Star Wars. You're talking about episode 76. Did I say something wrong? I don't know. You're putting some doubt in my head. But still, Will Farm Boy is talking about Darth Vegas. I don't know. I was talking about Darth Plagueis. Darth Plagueis would be the master of Palpatine when Palpatine was training to be a Sith. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go into my magical program here that allows me to show you things that are magical in the world. That wasn't the best segue in the world. But I want to go ahead and watch. This is The Rise of Skywalker. Kylo Ren meets the Emperor. And we'll go ahead and play the whole thing. Feel free to talk with me in the live chat. 14 live in the live chat with me. Thank you so much for joining us here on a Sunday, 4 days away from the drop, the theatrical release of The Rise of Skywalker. It drops December 20th. A lot of us are seeing it the 19th. Really excited. Let's go ahead and watch this trailer. In case you haven't seen this already, we are going to get some rich, deep Sith lore in this movie. We already get it here in this 30-second clip, so enjoy. If you haven't seen this clip, it's a minute, 20 seconds long.
At last. My boy. I have been every voice you have ever heard inside your head.
Yeah, so that was pretty entertaining to watch. Again, that was a minute 20, and hopefully we get Rick back here. Rick Villanueva goes, I haven't seen this. I'm bowing out for a minute. Okay, that's totally fine. Yeah, I don't consider TV spots to be spoilers, but I know some people really like to avoid everything and anything before going into that movie. So that's fine. Some things that I hear and see in that spot, though, that I think about, my boy. You know, like I'm curious. You know, we know that Ben is the son of Leia and Han, but my God, what if that's not Han's kid? Oh, that would be Wow, that would be an episode of Maury on a scale I can't even fathom. That would be thrilling. Maybe that's why Han jumped ship there, because Kylo, after a birth test, found out that that wasn't his DNA, and Han's like, "Well, that's not my kid. I'm out of here." That's some family drama. That is some family drama. Okay, so I want to go back to something here real quick, and I think it's valid. See what it is like, man. I think any relationship between the three main characters would be really forced. I think you're right, because it hasn't been a priority since. And there's like a little inconsistency, right? Like the Force Awakens, Poe and Rey are like right there with each other, but then like in the Last Jedi at the end, Poe's like, "Hey, by the way, I'm Poe Dameron," and I feel like I'm like, did we forget that these two characters met already? I don't know. It seems really forced to make that happen. However, I think that with it being a priority to show diversity in the show, in this movie, I could see them taking the time to try and to develop a romance. But yeah, you have so many things to do in this last movie. What do you truly have time to do in the best, as far as what's for the best for the story? And that's my thing. I love the diversity. I love it all. I love it all. I want the story to be the priority. The story that George Lucas created in 1977, he fleshed out through Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, the story that he went back to give you background with the prequel trilogy. The story should be number one priority, and no decision should be made other than this advances the story the way the story should advance. That's just what I think. Okay, so we got some people reacting to that clip, and it is really good, and I like this referencing the Sith. I mean, it's just like when I got excited, The Last Jedi. It was really cool to hear Luke Skywalker say Darth Sidious, or to say Sidious. Anything referencing the prequels, I think, with these new characters is pretty cool because of just how, when you think of how much time has passed between the creation of each of these sequels. Yeah, it's cool to get those canon nuggets from those OG characters. RFB is going to go crazy with that theory. RFB. Maybe I don't know what you're talking about, 2med2. Let me know in the live chat. I am confused. Kylo being the Emperor's kid. Oh yeah. Oh, Rural Farm Boy. Oh yeah. I think it's possible when you and this could all be misdirect too, but maybe the Emperor just likes to refer to other people as my boy. But then every voice in your head has been me. Is basically what the Emperor is saying. That he has manipulated Ben Solo this entire time. I love that the Emperor has been truly the puppeteer here. I think that's really great. What confuses me about this, and this is just my ear, and maybe my ear isn't right. The internet is pretty set on the Emperor's talking, and then he changes his voice to Snoke, and then he changes his voice to Vader. But that doesn't sound like Andy Serkis' Snoke on that line. It sounds like Clancy Brown, who just appeared on The Mandalorian. He was one of the bounty hunters. It sounds like him. It doesn't sound like Andy Serkis at all. And so I wonder if that voice is someone else. Is there someone else in Kylo's past that he is haunted by? I don't know the answer. I do not know the answer to that. But it's something that I'm trying to decide. Am I supposed to be curious about this or not? Am I supposed to be paying closer attention to this trickery of the Emperor? And keep in mind, you have some really interesting perspectives, perceptions of what the story is going to play out in this moment that we're sharing. If you're joining us for the live chat, there are people here who think that Emperor Palpatine is in this movie. Some think that he is not in this movie. Some people think it is a greater Sith character working here to manipulate Ben Solo and the story. I think that's really interesting. You have some people here who think that Rey and Kylo will team up and the Emperor. Some people think it will be just Rey. Some people think it will just be Ben. I kind of think the Rise of Skywalker, my God, what if they resurrected Anakin Skywalker and Luke Skywalker somehow, and they took down the Emperor? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's what if this prophecy, how much has to happen for it to be true? George Lucas said Anakin Skywalker is the chosen one. He is the chosen one. It's his story of his rise and fall and rise again. He is the chosen one. And so did that prophecy get lived out at the end of Return of the Jedi? Or by the Emperor cheating death, is there another step to go? And yes, was this prophecy misread? Was it just the Skywalker line that would rise and destroy the Sith? I'm not sure. It's a space soap opera. You're following this family. George Lucas has been very vocal about that. You're just following this family and its conflicts. Maybe Kylo is haunted by Matt Smith. That's a prediction thrown out in the live chat. If I was going to say plus or minus Matt Smith is in this movie, I'd say 3. I don't care. Why lie about being in the movie? If any actor or actress was like, I'm in this movie, okay, great. That does not change my perception or my excitement level. I mean, maybe it does change my excitement level for a movie. If Matt Smith comes out and says, I'm in Star Wars, I can't tell you the character, but I'm in the movie, I'd be like, that's awesome. Matt Smith is a great actor, and I hope that he gets some good camera time, although he'll probably just be like a cameo, like a lot of other people. He might just be a stormtrooper, but he's in the movie, cool. I'm not going to get all hyped up the night of just to go in there and see Matt Smith's scene. If I notice it, I'll be a happy guy, I suppose. But that's just my thing. Everyone is still really hanging on to Matt Smith for some reason. I just don't know why the hell we are. The guy said he's not in it, and if that's what he wants to say, then by all means, I'm forgetting about him. Okay, so live chat is just blowing up right now. 16 people in the live chat with us. We're up to 19, so by all means, for those of you just joining us, be sure you hit the share button. Get people in this live chat so we can have this live Star Wars conversation together and talk our final predictions for The Rise of Skywalker before it drops in theaters in 4 days. Coming up next, let's talk about Ben Demption. Let's talk about the Reylo thing, defining what is Reylo, what really is Reylo, and will that come to screen in 4 days? Looking forward to that conversation. Dale Erdman, kind of Palpatine is a culmination of Plagueis and many other predecessors. So that's interesting in the sense that, Charles Soule's Darth Vader series, it was 25 issues, and it did quite a bit for Star Wars. And one of the things that I really liked about that was that Momin character, this relic, this Sith that has lived through this artifact. And when this mask is put on, Momin is able to manipulate the individual wearing it. And then that is how we learn how Vader built his castle on Mustafar, for example. By the way, if you have not read Charles Soule's comic run, you have to. It is some of the best Star Wars storytelling of the last decade. And it came in comic book form. Believe it. Just great stuff. Shonda Zoop says, man, I thought Matt Smith would make a killer live-action Mortis son. I think so, but if you go back to John Boffman's point, if you're not going to take the time to do World Between Worlds in a live-action Star Wars movie, because you would think that would be too inside baseball for most of your viewing audience, there's no way in hell you're going to bring in the Mortis son and the daughter and the father. There's no way. I would love for that to be a thing. I think it would have been really cool. George Lucas wanted to explore the wills of the Force and how they work through the midichlorians, and maybe you could have seen the Mortis father, the daughter, and the son, and and explored this religion that Lucas had kind of created in his Star Wars world. But if World Between Worlds is too insider baseball to allow characters to come in and out of the story, which I agree, time travel with Star Wars has always made me uncomfortable. And again, they don't say it's time travel, but it pretty much is. If that's too inside baseball, there's no way they're doing the Mortis stuff. There's just no way. I would love it, but I just don't see it happening. Okay, going back through the live chat real quick. Just love everyone's great conversation having in here, and of course keep that going. It's a lot of fun. Palpatine influenced Anakin in the womb. The comic shows Shmi already pregnant. Oh, that is a good point. He would be referring to a flashback scene that we get in Charles Soule's comic run, but the birth has always been a virgin birth. It was always a play on Christ. Shmi even says in Phantom Menace, there was no father. So how did she get pregnant before? That comic sure shows a pregnant Shmi, but I think the point of that is the Emperor created that life. He created life within Shmi, and that was Anakin Skywalker. I think that's the whole point of it. In that panel, yeah, she's already pregnant. I think what it's showing us is the Emperor manipulated life and created life within this person. I think that's what it's supposed to be. So I get from a certain point of view, I think you're right. And from a certain point of view, I think I'm right. We are closing in on an hour here on episode 76 of Beyond the Blast Doors. And Mr. Rez, I appreciate that. Very much appreciated. Monday night is the live carpet event. Yes, it is. Going to be paying attention to that. Might even stream that on our channel. It might be illegal. Might not do that. But want people to be able to watch that. And so... So yeah, we'll be looking forward to that. And you can just kind of tell like all the actors and actresses are kind of getting tired of the media circuit. This is going to be week 4 of them touring on different shows and talking about the same 30 seconds of footage. And it's getting to a point now where it's like people are trying to like nitpick in Star Wars. I mean, look at John Boyega's last week. John Boyega comes out and he speaks openly about his concerns about The Last Jedi, how he didn't agree with a lot of the decisions. He talked a lot about that with Mark Hamill. He reveals that, and people start attacking him that he's betraying Rian Johnson in the movie. The guy's a paid actor. He still did what he was paid to do. But yeah, it just turns out that he also didn't like that, and that didn't fit the narrative for a lot of people, saying that it was just racist fanboys who didn't like The Last Jedi. John Boyega also had concerns about how that was all completed. And then he made comments about how he was just talking about how he tries to avoid the trolls on social media. And then people are trying to make it that he's trying to attack Kelly Marie Tran. And I'm just like, people, again, stop trying so hard to find a negative, a flaw, an imperfection. Stop trying so hard to try and disrespect people. I'm not talking to you in the live chat. We're listening to the show. We have a very positive community here with Beyond the Blast Doors, and it's growing every day, and we work really hard to have fun conversation with you about Star Wars. I don't see the negativity in our Star Wars conversation, and I'm very proud of that. And there's other shows that do just as nice of a job promoting a fun, I don't want to say safe, but a safe Star Wars conversation. I don't like certain things about Star Wars. I love certain things about Star Wars, and so do you. And I'm never going to tell you you're wrong. I'm going to disagree with you probably on some points. You probably disagree with me on a lot of things that I've said in the last 59 minutes. But we're still respectful. We're still Star Wars friends because it's Star Wars that brings us together. But yeah, just completely, I'm embarrassed for those people who went after John Boyega this past week. Dude seems like a true fan. Dude seems like a nice guy. I would love to have a couple beers with him in the bar one time. I don't know why you would even try and go after him, but whatever. People have nothing better to do. Shauna Zoop. Absolutely. But I also think it's hard not to say this guy is the dark side without even saying Mortis at all. But I think it would be mentioned in an unlikely event that they go that way. Yeah, maybe. Again, you have your take, I have my take. I think it's too inside baseball, but if it happens, I won't be upset about it. I always go back to the original working title of 9 being Black Diamond. We see that Black Diamond sketched in the back of the throne. What is that diamond? Is that diamond Kyber? Is that diamond somehow tied to the dagger? These are things that we don't know. We won't know for another 4 days. But the crazy thing is we're just 4 days away from the Rise of Skywalker, which is pretty cool. 2Med2, I have to figure out how to watch that and do my live chat at the same time without getting any copyright strikes. You will get copyright strikes, especially in this new age of YouTube. I still don't know what I'm going to do about COPPA. I don't think that my channel is made for people 12 years of age or younger, but I know that kids under the age of 13 have been on this channel before. So I don't know what I'm going to be doing about that as we get into the new year. But maybe you can tell me in the comments if what you think. Is this an adult Star Wars show or is it not? I think it is. Okay, cool. So, okay. All right. We have a little bit more time. I think people want to chat for a little bit longer. So let's go ahead and get back to, I was going to have the images go back to. If you're in the live chat right now and you want to tell me what you want to talk about this last 10 minutes, I want you to let me know right now. Cue that back up. Got the images going. Got some people got things to get done on a Sunday morning. And just a reminder, as always, you can always catch that live show on the YouTube channel, but you can always find us where you stream your podcast. So iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or SoundCloud. You always can join the Star Wars conversation right there. All right, so to close this out, I think this is just going to be like the predictions that I haven't made so far. So I'm just going to try and do this in like small lists because I think that's the easiest to keep track of. So what I'm most excited for when it comes to The Rise of Skywalker, I'm most excited for the new worlds that we will visit. I'm excited for the worlds we have visited before and we get to return to. I'm going to group that all into one. I will say fan service, and I think fan service can look a lot different. It can look a lot differently depending on how. That makes no sense. Fan service can look different or should have different forms. There we go. I got there. It took me like 10 seconds to figure out what I was saying. But yes, fan service has different forms. And I think fan service includes, C-3PO, looking at his friends and saying, just taking one last look at my friends. That's to me fan service. If you're going to, have Lando in the movie, I think that's fan service. And so I'm looking to see how these decisions play with the story, how they advance the story. I'm really looking forward to that. I want to see the Emperor so bad, and I want that to work so well. And so whatever the mechanism is, whether it's Plagueis, whether it's the Emperor, the Sith, whatever it is, I'm looking forward to that. So those are the three things that I'm really looking forward to. I'm worried about too much time spent developing new characters. I'm concerned about what was I concerned about? There's not much to be concerned about, honestly. I am concerned about how people think this movie should be longer. I've said this before. I don't think the runtime of a movie has a direct correlation to the quality of the movie. I've seen movies that, The Irishman, for example, is a great freaking movie on Netflix right now, and you should absolutely go watch it. I think it's probably better if it's if it's cut down by like 45 minutes. It might be a better film or more accessible by a larger viewing audience. It was 45 minutes shorter. I still loved the 3.5 hour version of that movie. So yeah, some movies they would probably do better if they were shorter, but there's some movies I think of like the Motley Crue movie on Netflix, for example. I think that movie would have benefited from an extra half hour of some story elements being fleshed out. To spend more time with like drug addiction and X, Y, and Z. But again, that's just me. So yeah, I think the real concern is just spending too much time on developing new characters. I don't think I'm worried about J.J. Abrams landing this one. Although the stigma of J.J. Abrams or the fault of him is people say that he doesn't know how to close out a series. He only starts them and then he leaves. He wanted to come back and take 9. And I think that if he hadn't been burnt out after Force Awakens, he might have done The Last Jedi. But I really want to have faith that he'll close this one out. When I showed that trailer of Kylo Ren and meeting the Emperor, okay, that was the 30-second sequence that went from, I'm excited to see this movie, to I cannot wait to see this freaking movie. It elevated my excitement level so much because we're going to get actual Star Wars lore. We're going down into these Sith catacombs. We're getting the Sith referenced, the manipulation of the Emperor. I hope we get 25 minutes with the guy. I doubt it, but I do hope for that. Okay, 12 with us still in the live chat on this Sunday morning. It is December 15th, 2019, episode 76 of Beyond the Blast Door. And Dale Ordman says he wants more Jedi. I want more. I know I shouldn't. It's not the Jedi way. Oh, he wants more runtime. Okay, whatever. 12 people in the live chat. We were up till 20. We had a big pop in the live audience, and then I think people had to either go church or grocery shopping. There is a large snowstorm going across the Midwest, from my understanding. Where I live, we could get anywhere from 3 to 7 inches of snow. We're being told that it could be 2 inches of snow per hour, which that seems like quite a bit. I mean, we live in the Midwest, so any amount of snow is enough for people to drive stupid on the roads. Unfortunately, it's not like in the Northeast where people there are used to getting 2-3 feet of snow. We don't live that life in the Midwest, but we have short-term memory loss apparently because we don't know how to drive in a slight dusting on the roads. Just a fun fact about Midwest life. Mr. Rez is sharing in the live chat. He says, rejoice for those around us who transform in the Force. Mourn them, do not miss them, do not. Attachment leads to jealousy, the shadow of greed, that is. Which is great. I just don't know why you're sharing that in live chat. I don't know what that has to do with the conversation we're having right now, but that is okay. I like that. I like that quote a lot. Okay, cool. So, yeah. So, I guess to wrap this thing up real quick, when I think of how this is going to go down, it would be really cool somehow if it was Ben, Anakin, and Luke defeating the Emperor. I wonder if Rey is a distraction, but I really do think that because the story, how it's been told these last two movies, it will be Rey that somehow defeats the Emperor, and maybe that dagger has something to do with it. I think Finn is going to have a lot more front and center role with helping lead the Resistance / Rebel Alliance with Finn or with Poe. I think it's possible a romance is displayed in this movie. I don't think it will be a critical moment of the movie, and that's okay. Romance, in that sense, has never been a critical point in the movie, I guess, except for like "I Love You, I Know" and Empire Strikes Back. Okay. C-3PO and R2-D2, I firmly believe, will live this movie. They will survive. I wholeheartedly want them to be in the very last second of this movie. We'll see what happens. I think the Emperor is the Emperor, although any connection to Plagueis being in this movie, I will take. I would love for that to happen, but I'm pretty sure it's also been like confirmed that Plagueis is not in this movie. I don't know. Leia will be seen at the very beginning of this movie. She will give Rey a piece of advice and a hug. They go off in the adventure. I don't think we see Leia again until the very end of the movie. Okay? Leia will live to see another day. Luke, I think we get 2 scenes with Luke. I think you get Luke consulting Rey, maybe early on with the training, maybe. And then a second scene if he does somehow have a role in the downfall, that third act, whether it's the destruction of the Emperor or we learn that the Emperor was somebody else and the destruction of that character. I think that's how that's going to work. I don't think you get more than 5 to 8 minutes total with Luke Skywalker in this movie. Lando. I want to think that Lando leads the Millennium Falcon into victory at the end of this battle. I'm thinking if Lando dies, that means you're also going to lose the Millennium Falcon in this movie. I think that's fair. Don't you think that's fair? If one goes, they have to go. We know that Lando is piloting the X-Wing or the Millennium Falcon. It just makes sense. Other characters that we're not talking about. Okay, so I think there's some people that are interested in this. So let's talk about this. Like, people want to talk about Reylo. What is Reylo? I don't think Reylo is a romantic relationship. I think if it's just a team up thing, you're going to see Reylo in this movie without a doubt. But you are not going to get fan fiction of Rey and Kylo or Ben making out on screen. I think that's what some people want. I don't think that's what you're trying to get. But if you are okay, if you think Reylo is the fact of Rey and Kylo Ren being redeemed to be Ben, or not redeeming himself, but just having to work with Rey in order to take down the big bad, then you're going to get that. You got that in The Last Jedi. They technically teamed up to take down Snoke in The Last Jedi. But Reylo to me is not a romantic thing. I don't think that's where the story is going. I think that there is a deep Force connection there, but not every deep connection has to be romantic. And so that's just my thought on it. I don't think Reylo romantically, sexually, all that stuff, that's not a thing in Star Wars, okay? That's not going to happen. But Reylo, a team up, that could happen. Bendemption, I think it's a foregone conclusion. I really do think that Rey could be captured by this. Maybe Rey is like possessed by evil, possessed by the Emperor. That's why we see the Sith version, the Dark Rey, and Kylo is like, I'm gonna go save her, and then Kylo saves her. He's like, I'm done. I'm on your team. We got to destroy the Emperor, and then they team up. He's now Ben, and Bendemption is complete. He dies and sacrificed to let Rey escape or something along those lines. Or maybe they duel again, and then just like Snoke, they get rid of the Emperor, and then Ben's like, "No, join me. We'll rule the galaxy." I have a hard time thinking they would do that again, but it's possible. Is there any character here that I haven't talked about? I think BB-8 goes to the Canto Bight and frees all of his slot machine cousins. I think romance. Okay, so Two Men Two's in the live chat. Okay, yeah, romance plays a role in Star Wars, but it's not huge, man. It's like in the original trilogy, yeah, it helped advance the story with Leia and Han, and romance was a factor in the prequel trilogy. Anakin fell to the dark side trying to protect the one he loved. I think I view it as it's not like the driving force because one, George Lucas didn't know how to write romance in the prequels. It wasn't very well executed. And that's just me. It's definitely been present, but it's not like Star Wars is a romantic comedy. I guess that's my point. It does play a role. Dale Erdman asked about B. Arthur. B. Arthur probably will not be in this movie. But for a period of time, we did have the holiday special on the YouTube channel until Disney told us to delete it. Snap Wexley, he's going to die. When you see Poe react that way in that one trailer where he's like screaming and he's in battle, yeah, Snap's taking one for the team. Rose Tico, I think, is going to be, man, I don't know. I think Rose is just a supporting character. And I think to close out this movie in the saga, I don't know how much of a role she's really going to have. I think JJ really likes Kelly Marie Tran. I could see her, I think she's going to take around with Finn and Poe, and that's fine. Like, that's totally fine. But it's not like she's going to be the one that kills the Emperor. Stephanie S. says, he did, you just don't get it. Well, Stephanie, by all means, please share with me in the live chat what I'm not getting. Marie Wilson says, I don't know. I watched Revenge of the Sith last night and cried huge tears over the romance in it. It certainly hits me strongly. And that's fine. Like Star Wars, it's art. It's going to hit us all differently. And I think that's the important thing is you just let the art influence you how it does. A scene that makes me cringe a lot is in Attack of the Clones when Padme is confessing her love to Anakin. It does not work for me. It doesn't feel natural. I don't think that Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen ever had good chemistry. But I also think that there were other reasons why that was. Sometimes when your only advice is faster and more intense, that's not sometimes best for the actors to do their thing. But there's some compelling moments for romance. I always mention I Love You, I Know. That felt real. That felt raw. I think when you see Padme betrayed by Anakin on Mustafar, that's a real moment. But honestly, I think Hayden Christensen ruins a lot of the romance for me. And I like Hayden as Anakin. I really think it was the chemistry between him and Natalie Portman that really kept me from really getting sucked into the romantic storyline. There's some cute flirty moments. I bashed one moment just to go from Attack of the Clones. I think the moment that works really well is when they're on Naboo and they're in the field, and that kind of felt playful. And at the dinner table, that was kind of cute. And then they got on the couch, and then he got a little creepy. And then we got uncomfortable. But again, that's also because I think that the lack of acting coaching on set was a thing, and maybe that script wasn't the best. But that's just me. Love seeing everyone still saying hi and everything in the live chat. Yeah, we're going to have Wedge. We're going to have Wedge in this movie, which is going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so let's see here. Shannon S. has responded. He writes in the old way that most people are not smart enough to get. I guess, are you talking about George Lucas? I mean, like, I'm not, and also, like, are you, like, calling people stupid? I don't have a need for that, but, again, like, everyone here is more than welcome to share their opinion, but we don't need to, like, insult people's intelligence, because I'll just block you, because there's no need for that. But I think Stephanie's trying to get to a larger point, and I want her to have that opportunity to express that. Okay, so it looks like the live chat has really slowed down. Someone's speculating here that Finn dies. I don't think any of the original people. I don't think the new trio, any of them will die. I don't see that happening. I think the closest we got was back in The Last Jedi with Finn, and he got saved and by the selflessness of Rose, and so I think that's the closest we were going to get. I think if it was going to happen, it was going to happen there. Okay, so we have hit an hour and 15 minutes here of Beyond the Blast Doors. It is a Sunday, episode 76. It's been a very fun Star Wars conversation with you, but now is the time to wrap things up and call it done. And then we'll get back together for spoiler-free talk of The Rise of Skywalker following our first viewing, or maybe our first two viewings of The Rise of Skywalker. And we'll wait a week, and then we'll do our spoiler-heavy conversation about The Rise of Skywalker. So be on the lookout for that. That would be probably... It would probably be the next Saturday or Sunday following the release. So let's see. We're going to see it on the 19th. I would be looking for our spoiler-heavy conversation somewhere between December 25th and December 28th, somewhere around the Christmas holiday. So when you have a little downtime, you have to decompress, maybe too much family time, maybe you ate too much, maybe you gave too much, and your heart has to rest because it grew so many sizes too big. I think that's a great opportunity for you to watch our conversation. Everyone being so great, Claude. Everybody loves Claude. That is the grossest looking character that I've ever seen created in the Star Wars world, other than Jabba the Hutt. And and I'm glad to see so many people rallying around him. I think it's great. Our goal is to go live. So today, right, is the 15th. I think the goal is to do a live show on the 22nd, and that would probably be spoiler-free, I would think. And then, later in the week, we'll release our spoiler-heavy. That will probably be pre-recorded, and we might do like a premiere of that, and we'll make sure that all three of us are in the live chat to have a conversation with you. Go live on the 22nd, talk spoiler-free conversation, The Rise of Skywalker, and we'll just kind of be like, oh, man, remember that? No, I won't. I'll be like, remember that one time that we won't do that. We're gonna talk about specific characters. We'll talk about how their story, character growth, comparing from the start of Force Awakens to the end of this movie. We'll talk about our favorite ships, probably our favorite sequences. We'll have to stop at some point because we don't want to spoil anything, but I think it'll be a lot of fun conversation with you. One last look in the live chat. It looks like, I was really hoping that Stephanie would continue her point. I was really interested in where she was going. I think Stephanie is one of the ones that was all for Ben Demption and seeing Ben really play a pivotal role in saving the day, which I think he does too. But maybe I just don't understand what she was referencing to. She wasn't direct about it. I'm trying to go back to her. You just don't get it. Yeah, I don't. Stephanie, Anakin, Padme, Han, Leia, Rey, and Ben Solo. Shaking my head. No love in Star Wars stories is about love. Okay, so now I kind of get it. So I'll go ahead and address it because she took the time to write. Love is in Star Wars, but I don't think Rey and Ben is a romantic love, and that's okay for me to think that. I don't think that's wrong for me. I guess I'll get proven wrong in the movie. But again, I think this is the problem with fandom right now: is you can't tell someone they're wrong. I don't agree with the idea that that Ben and Rey are a romantic thing. I don't agree with that, but I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. And I don't think we should tell anyone that they're wrong about where they stand on certain things. I know that romance is in Star Wars, but it's not a driving force for me. To me, Star Wars, there is that. It's like the hero's journey. It's the moral lesson. It's the reflection of society. It is following these characters through their trials and tribulations. And in a very basic, non-intelligent description, Star Wars is the Force lightsaber starships. That's what it is. Then you go deeper and you get into the morality of it. You have romance present, I know, with Anakin and Padme and Leia and Han, and I think the Leia and Han romance was done so much better. Thank you, Irvin Kershner. But at the same time, I just when you're listing all these things, I don't think romance is at the very top. I don't think it's the top three. But that's just me. And you can make Star Wars what you want to make it, because that's what art is. People say all the time, art is subjective, right? So it is what you want it to be, and I'll have it be what I want to be. And everyone in the live chat gets to have Star Wars be what they want to be, because that's what they're saying right now. Pretty cool. Jesse finally made it in to the live chat. Jesse, we're literally ending the show. We're literally 25 seconds away from ending the show. And you just got here. Well, this is awkward. That's no problem at all. Big thanks again to everyone who joined us in the live chat. If you didn't join us live, but you're listening on the rewind, thank you so much. Again, you can always catch us Sunday mornings, 11 a.m. Central, live on YouTube. Watch the rewind there, or you can also listen to iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud. It is a great time to be a Star Wars fan. 4 days away, and we will see what the Rise of Skywalker has in store for us. Who is the hero? We'll find out together. Have a great rest of your day. May the Force be with you.
Thank you for watching Beyond the Blast Doors. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget, give us a thumbs up and leave a comment. Beyond the Blast Doors, a Star Wars conversation.